everyone. Welcome to the final day of the AVN week performers pod. I'm here with the one and only Siri. I'm so excited to finally talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm also very excited to talk to you.
I feel like we followed each other on porn social media for like 8 years now and have never
Yes.
actually spoken. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know this. I was supposed to shoot a scene with you like 9 years ago. That's why I originally followed you.
That sounds about right. I don't remember who like what the company was for or anything, but yeah, like pre-retirement era for me.
So when did you retire?
2015 or well, yeah. I mean, basically I did not shoot at all beginning in January 2015. So
Okay. So when did you come back?
I came back in January 2020. So I was gone for like exactly 5 years.
So you came right in time for the pandemic, basically.
Much. Yeah, I came out of retirement. I had a couple like comeback shoots in Los Angeles, and then barely 2 months into that, quarantine started, and then I was stuck at home in Kentucky for a long time.
I also love that about you, that you're a non-conventional porn star in a like non-conventional city. Like I always find that so cool when people are like, oh yeah, I'm in Kentucky, I'm in Chicago, and I'm making porn.
Uh-huh.
So are you from Kentucky originally?
No, I'm not. I was born in Minnesota. I grew up,
Okay.
I spent like half my life in Minnesota and then moved to Texas when I was just getting into the teenage years.
Mm.
So I mean, up until I was like college age, it was like half and half. I think at this point I've lived in a lot of different places. But yeah, like when people ask me where I'm from, I usually say Minnesota because I identify more as a Midwesterner than a
Oh,
Texan. But I will
nice.
also say I'm from Texas when it's convenient for me to
Yeah, I feel like that Midwestern stuff like really hits to your soul. Like it's just always there.
Yeah.
I
And
I yeah, I'm from Michigan, so I have to like try to
oh,
deprogram that stuff so much. It's so hard
mhm,
because it's just like, oh yeah, I just want to be nice to everyone. And my partner's like, why are you doing this?
mhm. Yeah, I just have to remember, I'm like, not everyone deserves my niceness all the time. Some people don't.
Yeah, it's such a different thing just in different states and everything.
Yeah.
So what kind of went into all the challenges of this year? Did you mostly work in Kentucky? Were you kind of going back and forth between LA?
I go back and forth a lot. I pretty much spend with few exceptions, every month I'm in Los Angeles for a week. But I still live in Kentucky. So I just go out to LA for shoots and to make content with like other performers. And then I still shoot a bunch of stuff when I'm at home too. Like my partner here shoots a bunch of scenes with me for OnlyFans and for my own content.
Nice. How has that been like particularly challenging this year? Like, so I've interviewed 4 people this week. One had to cancel because they currently have COVID,
Oh my
and
God.
another girl got COVID twice. So it seems like that's really been a real active challenge trying to find a way to stay safe and do things in the right way. Has that really been challenging for you?
So far, I mean, I got my first vaccination dose in like late March of 2021. So I pretty much, well, that's another thing is like being in Kentucky, I've actually had, compared to what I see happening in like other much bigger cities, in Louisville here, like last year, I had earlier access to get vaccinated than most of my
Oh,
friends that I
nice.
play, just because it's a smaller state. And also, I mean, this state did a pretty good job responding to the pandemic. Like, I think it probably helps that we have had a Democratic governor throughout the pandemic times. So they were taking it a little more seriously than some states like Texas. But we had a pretty good response to it. So I was just chomping at the bit to go get vaccinated. And so I got
For sure.
I got 2 doses as soon as I possibly could. And then I also ended up getting my booster shot as soon as I possibly could. And that helped a lot because I was like, traveling back and forth. In 2020, I did 2 cross-country road trips, like driving out to LA and back to
Wow.
avoid flying. And that was fun. But as soon as I was vaccinated, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and fly out there again because that's a lot.
I feel like that's like a narrative for everything like with you this
Yeah.
year, that you drove out to out to LA in your car to do porn. during a pandemic. Like that's real commitment. I feel like so many people just write off porn things. It's like, oh yeah, it's just like you just go in the city you live in. It's whatever. You drove cross country. That's unreal.
Yeah, it was fun too. It was like a road trip, you know. My partner came on this first trip I did was a solo cross country road trip. That was fun. And also I was doing it not only driving alone, it's a 32-hour drive. The first time I did it alone, and I did it in 2 days. So it was like 2 16-hour days of driving. It was pretty exhausting. Through and it was like through Denver too. So through the Rocky Mountains, and
it was
July.
It's beautiful and stuff.
I was convinced I was gonna die. Like,
oh my God.
Rockies in the middle of a terrible rainstorm, like going down those really steep mountain grades. And then the second time that I did the road trip, my partner came with me, and we took the route that goes, because from Kentucky, you can kind of go like there's a northern and a southern route. And we took the southern route the second time, thinking, oh, it'll be better because that was in January then. It's like, it's winter. Maybe let's not drive through the Rocky Mountains because of the snow. It was not better going the southern route.
It's wild how much of like Arizona gets snow. It's really crazy. You never think about it, and then you go. I went to the Grand Canyon as a kid. I think it was like in January. It was just completely snow and ice covered. I'm just like, what? We're supposed to be in desert, right?
Yeah. Well, that seemed like last fall we did, and this wasn't even a part of the cross country thing. This is like a separate, like we flew out to Vegas, like rented a camper van and went and just drove around. We ended up going to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, and that was in September.
Oh yeah, that's so beautiful up there.
We were not prepared for how fucking cold it was though. We had to like go to an REI and like buy extra like warm shit that we didn't have because we were not prepared for the coldness.
I also feel like it being unseasonably cold in Vegas in January is the usual thing of AVN, where all the girls are wearing nothing, but then you go outside and it's like 40 degrees and you're absolutely freezing.
Absolutely. It's one of the very few benefits of like the event historically being, you know, at a casino hotel where like, it's like that's the only part that I'm like, okay, well, I don't technically have to go outside.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's so weird. I've talked to a few girls who haven't been able to go to AVN in person, even though they've been nominated for the last 2 years. And it's just not having that has to be such a strange experience.
It does. It definitely takes away some of the like excitement and importance of the event
for sure.
Be like, yeah, this is just a live stream now.
Yeah, it's really different. I think they're doing the right thing with all this. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the amount of people doing content trade, especially now, I feel like it could turn really bad really fast.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's shooting content all day, where I feel like when I first got into the industry in like 2013-ish, like everyone was just trying to network at the convention and trying to get paid gigs and everything. It's just so different now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just because, you know, of the prevalence of like OnlyFans and everything. And on one hand, I'm like, it's good that performers are realizing the value of making their own content, because that's something I was a little more on board with early, just because I had really, really good mentorships from like women who had been in the industry for a while, who really encouraged me, like, make your own content, like get your own content library. So I was kind of working on that earlier, but I still very much remember in like 2012, 2013, 2014, AVN, no one was really shooting a whole lot back then, their own content in hotel rooms. I mean, I know that there were some production companies that would do shoots, but it was much, much less like content trade going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just thousands of porn shoots. Yeah. I feel like that's the one really bad thing about content trade right now, because it's like, if there is someone who has COVID or whatever else, it's going to get around fast. And that's the really scary thing, how it can kind of get out of control.
Yeah, that's very true.
Here's hoping there can be in-person award shows again and all that stuff. It seems like both the Why Not Cam Awards and the XBiz Awards seemed like they went fairly fine. I didn't hear of any huge breakouts or anything.
I went to the XBiz Awards, and I will say that like I got Omicron that week.
Do you think it was from
XBiz? No. It's a really long story, but basically I found out right when I got there that I was positive. Like I found out like days later,
Oh
because I
my
was
God.
asymptomatic, and I had gotten a panel at TTS and it took a really long time to come in. Like my results were like super delayed. I do not know why, but yeah. So I found out and I was like, well, shit. And then I completely isolated, and then I ended up being able to come out of isolation and still make it to like the award show. But like it was, yeah. And it was a kind of an insane week anyway, just because of everything going on. And then I also had like some shit in my family that happened that was stressful, that yeah.
On top of having Omicron and not knowing about it, that's
It was
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Wow, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. That's so scary. My partner went to New York. I think it was like the week everything went like to shit there with Omicron.
oh yeah.
And it was the same thing where they got there 2 days in. It's like, okay, I have to isolate the rest of my trip.
It's I keep saying like Omicron does not give a fuck, like because I vaccinated and boosted, and like I am an incredibly like healthy person. I generally, I mean, I other than since the pandemic and COVID happened, I have not been sick like in years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, and then I still got, it's like just so extremely contagious. And I mean, even at the XFIS Awards, like all the events, the venues were requiring masking and proof of vaccination. And like, they were actually hardcore checking people's vaccination cards. It wasn't the kind of thing where they're like, show us your card, and then they glance at it once. It was like, they're actually like looking at it and like checking your against it. Like, so it was comforting knowing that everyone who was allowed into the venues were people who were vaccinated, but that even with the new variants, it's like, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's still good, but
yeah, that's the scary part. I feel like we had a few months, maybe from like June until October, that was like, okay, everything's finally kind of normal again. And now it's just all kind of back into all of this.
I know.
But I feel like that's just a risk right now, whether you're doing porn, whether you're an athlete, whether you're making film or a musician. Like if you're traveling right now, there's a chance that you're going to get it. And it's just kind of this.
Or if you're not traveling, because, you know,
who knows?
Contact traced to find out how I was exposed. It became pretty clear that I was exposed at home when I hadn't even traveled in 2 weeks. Cause I did go like visit my family for Christmas, but I, based on like incubation times and stuff, like I had to have gotten it like at home. And in the time period where I would have gotten it, I was like, I literally saw like 5 people, and they're all friends who are kind of hermits. So I'm just like, literally, I probably got this from like going into a grocery store. Like,
yeah. You truly never know. It's just so scary.
Yeah.
But I'm happy we're asymptomatic, and
seem
to be, you don't have any symptoms now or anything left over.
Oh, no. I mean, I tested positive, or I mean, tested negative. Well, I know, like 10 days ago now. So yeah, I'm totally good. But it's just so, it gets more and more challenging to navigate as the farther into this we get.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I shot, I think it was in August, and it was right before, I think it was like PASS was like, oh, everyone needs to get COVID tested. And at the time it was like, oh, everyone's vaccinated. We don't have anything to worry about. And it just really shifted so fast where it's like, now you really need to get all these like day up tests and stuff to feel comfortable on set.
Yeah.
So when did you originally get into the industry, and what kind of made you decide to step away for a little bit?
I originally started in 2012, and that was, I never remember the age I was when I started. I'm like, oh, I was 23 when I started.
Okay.
I started in like February 2012. So I was 23 when I started, and I had been in school. I was going to college in Texas, and I mean, long story short, like I just had the idea in my head that I really, really wanted to do porn or some kind of sex work. And I didn't have a whole lot of direction as far as like what I wanted my career in that to look like. But I just understood that like I would be really upset. I would always question my decision to not do it if I made the decision to not do it. So it was like really a bucket list thing that I was like, I just got to try this.
Yeah, just to see what it's all about.
Yeah. And so I moved to LA like that winter of 2012. And I think my first shoot was like February 2012.
Oh, so you moved before you even had any shoots?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It was very much a like, well, let's go full ham on this. Like, let's just really go for it. And I did have like sort of a backup plan to like go back home if everything just like was the worst. Cause I was like, what if I get out there and I do some shoots and I'm like, I hate this, you know? So I kind of had like
I
a
have the
backup
same plan too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I'm here for 6 months and it doesn't work out, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, obviously it did work out. And even my very, very first shoot, I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. And I was always, from that moment on, I was always very career minded about it. Like, I knew that I wanted longevity and to really like make a name for myself in the industry. And I was I performed for 3 years. And then by the very end of 2014, I decided to stop shooting. And I kind of stopped shooting and then like waited a couple months and I still lived in LA, but I wasn't shooting. And then I moved away from LA. And then it was like 4 months after I had stopped shooting that I finally actually came out and said, like, I'm retiring.
Yeah.
Which I only did that because I knew that I would have scenes that I had already shot that were in post-production that weren't released yet. And I didn't want to announce I'm retiring and then like have DVDs get released after I said that.
Yeah, for sure.
That would just confuse fans. So I waited until like everything I knew that hadn't been released yet came out. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm done. But by the time I said I was retiring, I was like, technically had already like moved to Kentucky and been living a civilian life for a couple months.
So
undercover.
So like, what or who inspired you to do porn in the first place? Like, were there performers or like websites or films that you saw that were like, I want to do this?
Yeah. So what my background, like as a youth, I was like really a late bloomer. I didn't date anyone in high school. Like I had crushes on people, but like I was just, you know, a virgin and like very, very inexperienced sexually, but in practice, in my mind, I was very experienced because I was obsessed with like consuming media about like I was like always reading like sex ed stuff online. Like I just would like I would read whatever I could get my hands on. And so some of that involved porn watching, but when I was a teenager, like it was kind of, this is, you know, 2000, mid 2000s. Like I graduated high school in 2006. So it's not like today where everyone has a smartphone. Like if I wanted to watch porn, I had to like basically try to sneak access to a porn site on a computer that like
was shared by your family. Yeah.
Go find the browser history, you know? So I didn't really like watch a lot of porn as a teen. Like the only porn I saw as a teen was like when people, oh God, I hate that this was such a fucking thing in the 2000s, but you like Lemon Party, like the only
oh my God, yeah.
like Tub Girl was like when someone sends you a fucking link and you're like, like
yeah, or Two Girls One Cup. It's all the same genre where it's like, why are you sending this? Yeah.
Yes, it was like that, like being trolled by like the weirdest video someone found online, and so by the time I actually like found porn that I sought out, and by the way, like I never had any. I never felt like an aversion to watching porn or to any. I was actually extremely curious.
See, I was horrified the first time I saw porn.
Really?
Yeah, I was like 15, and my girlfriend at the time was like, her family was like very progressive about that stuff, and she was like, "Oh, like let's look at this." And it was just like a site. It was like a tube site, and there was like a bunch of dicks everywhere, and I'm like, "This is overwhelming. I don't like this."
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So I didn't watch porn until I was literally 18.
Yeah, that's funny. I know I watched it, but it wasn't like a habitual thing, you know? It's not like I couldn't tell you what the hell I watched. I just know that sometimes I would be willing to take the risk to like go sneak a peek on the family computer at some porn in the middle of the night, and then I would like delete the browser history, but I did not make a habit of it at all. So yeah, like after I finished high school, and you know, it was when I was like 19 is when I started to actually like think more serious about my own sexuality, because I had honestly just not really thought about it. Like it was always there, like, but I think I was like I don't know, I was like very sexually insecure growing up, and I think a lot of that was that I just didn't feel like I fit in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And So finally, when I kind of found like my people in college, and it was basically all the queer people at
Yeah,
my
that
college.
happens.
So when I found like my community, and that's when I started like realizing, initially I had a girlfriend that we started dating, and we were getting kind of serious. And, so I came out to my family, and at the time that coming out was like telling my friends and extended family that I'm a lesbian, which
Mhm.
is how I identified, because this was the first time I'd ever had a dating relationship with someone, and it was a woman.
And college and lesbian relationships in college are just like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
I
like
feel you.
2008 or something. And like bisexuality is still not a real thing. Like, it's like I was watching the L Word, and like the one
Oh,
bisexual character
no.
in the L Word is like demonized constantly for being
Yeah.
bi. So, but then some things happened, and like by like 2010 is when I was like, oh shit, I'm bisexual. Like, and so that was a whole other thing that like
Mm.
I was like very like worried about, because I felt like, am I betraying like my friends, and that was a fun time to work through that. But that was ultimately the best. And like along the way, I got super into queer porn. And the website that I subscribed to for like years was Crash Pad Series.
Oh, that's such a good
And
origin site to get into it.
it's so good. It was actually like
Yeah.
the first girl that I ever like, we dated, but it was long distance. So
Of course it was. Yeah.
we met in
Yeah.
person like twice.
Mhm.
Um, and it did not last that long, just because that distance was insane. But she's the one who was like, go to this website. And she like told me about Crash Pad Series, and I was like, oh my God. So that was literally my first thing, is
Do you remember
watching all
like
the
what performers you saw in Crash Pad that you were super into?
what was that?
Do you remember what performers you were really into on Crash Pad series?
Um, yeah, so there was one scene that I watched. Well, there were a couple scenes that I watched a lot, and
Mhm.
both of them involved Jiz Lee,
Okay.
who's actually like a friend of mine now, which is fucking amazing, and Five Star, who
Oh
is,
yeah.
I don't know if Five Star is performing anymore.
I think they just do videography now. They're one of the main food
Yeah,
videographers. Yeah.
that's yeah, and so that was really my inspiration, and I do think it's
Aw.
a little funny that that's what I was drawn to in porn. And my approach with my own career in porn has been way different from many of that. I obviously like I did way more like mainstream stuff, but I've always like had the mentality in my mind of like, whether anyone knows it or not, I think of myself as a queer porn performer.
Aw. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like getting into the industry. I was also Crash Pad and Trouble Films were the first two things I watched. So I was always like, I want to like do queer porn and obviously be part of that, but also like I want to have some mainstream influence and like have an effect on that world, because I feel like that's a really the cool thing about queer porn is it can have all these effects on mainstream porn and make it change and be more inclusive and stuff.
To me, that's been one of the most amazing things over the last several years, is seeing the sort of like shape shifting within the
Yeah.
industry, of there being more like, I mean, just the more common acceptance and respect that we see now for trans performers.
Yeah,
And
it's day and night.
yeah,
The first
it's
porn award show I went
wild.
to was literally
Yeah.
called the Tranny Awards. 100%. And like, I was like,
Oh,
this is kind
yeah.
of fucked up. And people are like, Chelsea, you're creating drama. I'm just like,
Creating,
yeah,
oh my God. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's just so different.
yeah, it's so different. And even, I mean, I think we've all observed also the transformation of the way that bisexual men are treated in
Yeah.
porn. Bisexual men used to be completely fucking invisible.
Yeah.
And
They would just be
now
like,
we've got
oh, they're
like,
dirty. They can't be here. All this like
yeah,
crazy fucked up shit.
yeah. And there are still some people, old school people, who have those attitudes, but I would say that at this point, their opinions matter less than they ever have.
I was
And it
actually
definitely
talking.
seems like the tide is turning.
I was actually talking to Sin last night about this on this pod. That's like even what mainstream porn is now. It's like director of the year is Caden Cross, who's a former performer. The other
Mhm.
directors who are doing stuff are like people like Ricky Greenwood or Brie Mills, who are like doing all this high concept porn stuff. That's like,
Yeah.
oh, as a performer, what do you want to do? It's
Yes.
just so drastically different than before when it was kind of just these like cis men who didn't really give a fuck about the actual end product. That's just
Yeah.
like, well, this is to make money, so we're just going to shoot this formula over and over and over again.
Yep. And you can tell that like even they were bored with that. Like there wasn't a lot of passion in that style of production. There's no like, no soul in it really. And so I love seeing now that it's finally like, okay, like, yeah, like performers should also be involved in projects that they're passionate about.
Yeah, it's just so different. I just feel like even just like the whole mindset about being like, oh yeah, porn's art. It's totally a normal thing now. Like,
yes,
in 2016, you would have gotten laughed at AVN for saying that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just shifted so much in such a short period of time. I think the studio models really, like, it's just mostly going away. So the only ones that are left are the ones who are really actually doing special things now.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely like, and models depend less on studio work now. Like that's how I'm, the reason I'm able to live in Kentucky is because I can make a living selling my own content, and every studio shoot I do is honestly not even to put a check in my bank account. It's to get the experience of being on set and to have the opportunity to do the kind of expression in my performances that I want to do, because I shoot a lot for like Adult Time, and they're doing really high-end productions, especially like the stuff that I've done for Pure Taboo with Bree Mills. Like obviously I can't put a production together like that on my own. Like, I mean,
yeah, for sure
I could, but I do not want that level of responsibility at this point in my life. So that's really why I continue to shoot for studios, is like, because I can be choosy and I can do stuff that just excites me. Or, if I get an offer for a shoot that's like, pick any performer you want to work with kind of thing, which is basically how I did the scene with Daisy Taylor. Like,
it's just so wild. Like that's what porn is now, where before it was just so much just like, oh, you're just another disposable person we're going to put in this role almost. Like, it's just so crazy that the industry is now that's just like, oh yeah, I really creatively think this is a great project, so I'm going to get involved, or this is why I'm creating this. It's just, I feel like such a great place. And just truly after all this shit in the pandemic, just that creative energy is still here is, I think, just like so heartwarming. It makes me feel so stoked about the industry moving forward.
Same. Yeah, absolutely. Things are in a good place. And I'm also like, not to take things down to like a sad tone all of a sudden, but because of everything you just said and like how things feel like in a good place, and like we have this freedom to be choosy if we want to about our work. Like, if you're a performer who is able to make somewhat of a living on your own content, like that's generally a much better position to be in than being beholden, waiting for a company to hire you. So it's like we have more control for ourselves. And then also being aware that like a lot of that is owed to OnlyFans being such a like a boon for the adult business.
And mini vids too, I think too.
Mini vids is also huge.
Yeah, it's just so night and day from before, where you really had to rely on a studio to break you and be like, okay, you're going to be a porn star for 2 years or a year until we overshoot you, and then you can't book you again.
Yeah, that's how the beginning of my career was. And I had to fight constantly to get the work that I wanted to get, and to feel like I was treated equally to other performers. But when I started out, I had an agent, and I only ended up having that agent for like 6 months maybe. And then I fired him, which he did not want me to fire him and said I couldn't.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we basically reached a like, don't ask, don't tell agreement, where like he left my photo up on the agency website, but like producers knew to not call him to try to book me. They would just go to me directly. And then once because I had signed like a 1-year contract. So once the 1 year came up, then he removed my photo from the website. So, and he did that because I was like, I'll go to the labor board if you don't leave me alone. And, that was Derek Hay, who literally like is in the middle of a lawsuit now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because of doing the exact same thing to other women that he did to me. So
I I feel like most of the time when people pull sketchy stuff, they'll eventually get caught for something else down the road. Like that's kind of what I feel like about this industry. Like you're gonna eventually have your thing where you slip and then you're gonna get called out or deplatformed or something.
And it might take 20 years to get called out, like with Ron Jeremy, but
yeah, for
I think
sure.
now more than ever, like people are willing to do that. And having people who are willing to do the calling out makes a big difference. And I think that a lot of that is actually owed to the fact that we have more diversity in the industry now.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely moving in a right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd totally agree with that.
So how many AVNs did you go to? What was your first year that you ended up going?
Well, actually, I technically went in 2012 because January 2012 was right when I moved to LA. So I hadn't actually gotten an agent or done my first shoot yet, but I went as a fan. I went on a fan.
Wow. How was that?
It was fine. Like it was, I got to see what it was like. It was kind of a perfect way to like, because I literally was living in Texas. So I drove to Vegas, went to the AVN, ticket, and then as soon as AVNs was over, got in the car, drove to LA, and then went and
to become a porn star. Oh my God.
So I
That's like a storybook thing almost.
It was a perfect introduction because I was very like nervous and like imposter syndrome. And I was like, well, I haven't even shot with anyone yet. And I don't know any of these people. So I didn't go there like I'm networking or like trying to get into porn. I just went and I was a fly on the wall and I didn't really talk to many people. I just kind of observed what was happening. And I did sort of dress the part. Like I dressed like I was a porn star because, and that was actually funny because then I actually had a bunch of fucking like, the random like porn paparazzi dudes who were always around. All these dudes like took photos of me and I was like, you don't even know who I am. You're just assuming that I'm a porn star you should know about because I look the part, which was perfect. Cause then I was like, haha. I've tricked them.
Really funny at AVN. Like if you like do an interview with someone in like the main part of the casino and you look like you're a porn star, people after will be like, I don't know who this girl is, but I need a picture with her. And it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird. But
it really makes you feel like a celebrity for like those 4 days.
Yeah. So that was my first AVN. And then I went in 2013 because that was after, I'd been in the industry for a full year then, and I was nominated for Best New Starlet in 2013. So I got to go as like
that's like a huge one.
I was surprised. I did not expect to get nominated. I was very, very surprised. Yeah. But I did shoot a lot. I mean, I had a great first year. Like I shot quite a lot. I worked very consistently. So yeah, I guess that's why. And I had like a lot of like box covers. That kind of stuff used to matter. It doesn't really fucking matter anymore,
it really did. But I mean, people used to buy DVDs. Like
exactly.
I have a whole suitcase full of DVDs that
it used
are from
to be
like 4 years ago.
It used to be a thing. Like girls would be like, a DVD would come out. They'd be like, I'm not on the box cover.
Oh my God. I remember that shit happening on one of my sets where the girl got all mad that she was on the box cover. I'm like, girl, no one buys DVDs anymore. It doesn't matter.
I had a thing in like 2012, within that first year where a company had hired me for a shoot and they had told me, like they had specifically said, you're the box cover for this. And then, so we did like extra stills and pretty girls and stuff to have box cover options. And then when the DVD came out, it was someone else. And I was so mad.
Oh,
I was like, what? You lied.
I feel like early in your career when that shit happens, it's like, oh my God, I'm being betrayed. And you can take it so personal.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I wanted to talk about that is a great development, I think, in the industry and the way that performers are treated and respected more, as far as like we're the experts on our own brands and careers. Sure. And when early on, like I felt like no one trusted me when I said like, I want to do this type of work. Like I wanted to do things that were more like vignettes or like acting roles. Mm-hmm. And the agent that I started out with, part of the reason why we disagreed was because he only saw me being a flash in the pan, like girl who jumps in, gets shot out in 1 year and then leaves. And I know that a lot of that was related to my appearance at the time. You know, the fact that I am not a petite person. He basically like was like, we're gonna just market you as BBW and we'll do all the BBW niche stuff. You know, we'll shoot you for all those sites. And that's what your career will be. And I was like constantly pushing back on that with him.
Yeah.
And of course it wasn't because I had a problem with being marketed with a term like BBW, but I did realize like that is going to pigeonhole me and I will be seen as like a niche performer who's not an option for other types of shoots, because back then you did not have, I mean, there's still so much fat phobia in the porn industry now.
For sure.
Today.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little better, but like back then it was like, yeah, I had to like fight tooth and nail to be considered to be cast in anything that like had a little bit of an acting role or that, you know, was like a higher budget production, because really what my agent wanted to do initially was just throw me to whatever like gonzo companies would shoot BBW stuff. And I was like, that's not the way, sir. That's not what I'm doing here.
But like when like the era that we both got into porn, it was so much, oh, this is your thing. You have to be in this thing. And I got that with trans stuff where I didn't watch any trans porn before I got into porn. I was into stuff like Stoya and Sasha Grey and queer porn. So that was all my whole vision, where I'm like, I want to do all this weird creative stuff. I want to do really hardcore like gangbangs and stuff. And they're like,
same.
Oh, you want to do a solo scene where you masturbate for like some dumb straight man who you need to trick. I'm like, I'm not here to do any of this.
Yeah. Goddamn.
It's just changed so much during our careers, honestly. This like last decade of porn, it's just so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess even from before that though, like the 90s to the 2000s, like people in the 90s were making real money, you know?
Yeah. I mean, did you ever hear people who have been in the industry for 30 years reminiscing about the scene rates, or like even, you know, the crew pay for stuff in the 90s?
Yeah,
and it's wild. Like there were also so many fewer people in the industry. Fewer people were willing to do porn.
It feels like the hair metal days where everyone just had like money and everyone had like the fake boobs and the big blonde hair. And I'm just like, it's just so drastically different than kind of what happened everything after that. Mm-hmm. So what kind of made you want to come back? Because you left for a few years, you got back to civilian life in Kentucky.
It was like a combination of boredom and also really knowing on like a visceral level, like even though I didn't hate my job that I had a couple different jobs when I was retired, but the one that I had for the year prior to me coming back into the industry was like very much like a desk job. And I got to use my brain in ways that I enjoyed. And it was challenging, and like I had great coworkers and stuff, but I had this like really like gut feeling of like, this is not making me happy. Like, this is not what I want to do. I don't want a career in this, like, you know. And also it's like, I just had hit my early 30s, you know, when I started working at that place. I was like turning 31 and I'm 33 now. So it was just like kind of feeling this thing of like, I need to know what I want to do like with my life. And the more I considered that, and also I used to do a podcast of my own called After Adult, which it's still archived out there. Like, you can still listen to it, but I'm not doing episodes anymore. But I started doing that podcast anonymously. I did not say who I was, like my performer name or anything. And I started that in the summer of 2018. So that was another thing, was like doing this podcast where I was anonymous, but like I did talk about my experiences in porn. Kind of like it forced me to think back on those experiences. And it was a combination of like being frustrated and bored with my job and remembering all the good parts of my time in the industry prior and realizing I would rather do that. Like, I think that I would be so much happier going back into sex work and also getting to be my own boss again. Like, working in like a corporate desk job environment for the first time was truly something that awakened in me something I always knew about myself, which is that I'm very like entrepreneurial. God, that's a hard word, but it hit on a deeper level because it was really the first job where I felt like, oh God, I have absolutely zero control over any of this. And that's so frustrating. Like, I just want to do things the way I want to do things. God damn it.
Did you just feel like that you like were still able to perform? Was there any doubt for you at that point? Or were you just like,
I
I
had
can
so
go
much
back
doubt.
into this and do what was the
I had a
doubt?
lot of doubt. I had a lot. I was like, what if no one thinks I'm attractive enough to shoot me anymore? What if my fans don't even like me? What if I don't even have fans anymore? Like honestly, the worst case scenario I imagined is that like, what if no one remembers who I am? What if everyone's like, who the fuck is that? Like, we do not remember who you are. And it was literally the exact opposite of all those things, which was so encouraging. Like, when I kind of resurfaced from the shadows, the first way that I actually dipped my toe back in was I found the subreddit that is devoted to me. There's like a Siri porn subreddit. And at the time it had like 50,000 subscribers and it was active. It was like still active and moderated daily and had posts, a lot of posts and a lot of people commenting. And this is like when I've been gone for 5 years. And seeing that was like, oh shit, I have like an actual fan base still. Like, so I made like an account and I like I like submitted like a verification thing so that they knew it was really me. And I like posted on that subreddit. And that was the first taste of like, oh, there is still an audience if I want to go back into this fully. And so it was very encouraging and also like kind of quelled a lot of my fear around coming out of my little like hidey hole.
Just physically, were you pretty confident that you could just go back into it?
I was confident in my ability to perform in front of a camera again, without really skipping a beat. But because, I mean, I definitely felt a little bit self-conscious about having had breast reduction surgery during my period of retirement. Because I was literally, one of the things I was most known for, other than like having bright hair and like being bubbly on camera, one of the things I was known for was like having really, really big natural boobs. When I first started out, my boobs were like a 32H at their largest. They fluctuated with my weight, but like at their largest, which is when I was brand new, they were like, I wore a 32H bra size. And during the time that I was retired, I had actually always wanted to get breast reduction surgery. Like, I begged my parents to like give their parental consent for me to do it when I was a minor, when I was like 16 years old. And my mom was like, no, are you insane? Like, I'm not going to let you like go under the knife, your child. And I was like, but my boobs are too big and I hate them. And it was, so I always had a very like tenuous relationship with that specific part of my body. It caused a lot of dysmorphia for me as a teenager and even growing up. Like, I mean, honestly, being really uncomfortable with my size of my boobs was part of the reason why I did not pursue any kind of relationships or why I didn't feel comfortable trying to have sex or like being sexually
just like dysphoria around it.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't want to look at myself naked. Why the fuck would I want to show that to someone else? That's how I grew up feeling about my body. And what's funny is like actually being in porn helped that so much. Like, I actually had very little dysphoria after I had begun my career in porn because I felt it was very validating, you know, realizing like, oh, there's so many people who find my body really attractive.
And that you're making your career and having all these things because of your body and its abilities to perform. Like, it's a real thing where you're like, wow, I can actually do all this stuff because of just me, you know?
And what I found, ironically, kind of after I left the industry was while I didn't have strong feelings of dysphoria about my body anymore, I had, and at that time, it was when I started getting really into like powerlifting and getting into like all the different athletic endeavors. Like there was a time when I tried to run a lot. I hate running now, but like I gave it a try. And so there's all these like physical activity that I was like trying to pursue seriously and realizing like I can't like comfortably do any of this stuff because of my boobs. And I also consistently had like shoulder problems. Like I still have like a fucked up shoulder on this side, which is literally just from like carrying around massive boobs my entire adult life. So in 2016, I got like my insurance approved me getting breast reduction surgeries. It's like literally considered medically necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got that done. Best decision I ever made. I still say that all the time and stand by it. And it was something though that when I came out of retirement, you know, I'm going, how are my fans going to feel about that? Because I know a lot of them were into me or drawn to me because of my breast size. And now that that part of me is not the same, how is that going to be received? And it's been, for me, that's maybe been the toughest part of like my career now. Like not the toughest part, because to be honest, like I'm kind of the opinion of like, if you were really ever a fan of me, then you should still enjoy my performances just as much. Like,
yeah. Also, I feel like it's so weird being a porn performer and people are like, oh, 19-year-old version of you is the best. I'm just like, it's a little strange that also people don't actually see you as your current self. They're viewing you as however they view you in whatever porn they saw you in. So there's like people that are still viewing me as 23-year-old me. And it's just like, it's a
what
weird
I think
experience.
It's like I mentioned that subreddit, right? Which I still have a little bit of a presence on, but I don't spend a lot of time on there because it can be toxic to me, to my mental health, because of how many fans on there are really stuck in 2013 with 2013 version of me and like literally mad at me. Like I've had people like send me hate letters about my choices for my own health. So it is interesting though, because it's one of those things where it's like, you guys all like, when I decided to come out of retirement and I like found this subreddit, I was reading like the posts that fans wrote on there. Like there were so many posts that were like, God, you know, it'd be just a miracle if she would come and shoot porn again. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what I'm doing, but you're just mad I don't look the same. And regardless of breast surgery or not, you realize I was 23 in those videos.
Yeah.
And I am now, well, when I came out of retirement, I was 31. So it's like, I literally am almost 10 years older. And I've also had fans be like, you know, I don't understand why you ruined your boobs and like why you got all that face surgery. And I'm just like, I've never had face surgery. Like literally, this is what people look like when they age. I'm sorry if you don't like it. Like I have less baby fat in my cheeks. That's what happens.
I guess that's part of being a public figure. And I think it's.
Oh, it is. Yeah. That's why I don't like, I try to stay away from it because it's so fucking toxic.
It really is that there's just all these people's perceptions of you from over the years that they just kind of get stuck in your head. But I think no matter what you're doing, if you're in front of the camera all the time or you're an athlete or whatever else, like people are just going to see you and be like, oh, I'm thinking of this version of you, you know?
Yes. And fandom comes along with this, like often has this sense of ownership or entitlement to that person attached to it, which is, I mean, I definitely have a different and more well-rounded, I guess, perspective on all of that now, being somewhat of a public figure and seeing what people say about me. And it makes me feel a lot more empathy for like anyone who's in the public eye, like getting personally attacked like that. Cause it's like, dude, I don't care. Like, it's really no one deserves that. And except for Donald Trump, but
I mean, he can he's thriving off of it. So
if
anything, he's good.
He just loves it
because
it's
what he's going for. Yeah. Like he's great. He's doing great with it. Yeah, I think it's just such a weird thing when you do realize that you know, what people are going through with that. And I think there's so much more of a public health mindset on mental health for athletes, performers in this industry, musicians. Like I feel like it's really becoming more that
it's good that it's discussed now, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I retired in a nutshell, was mental health.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much burnout in the porn industry. There's been so many times where I nearly quit porn. It's just like, it's a thing that's, I think, going to happen no matter what. When you're in the public eye, there's gonna be these stressful situations that you're just like, how am I in this? Why are people being cruel to me who I don't know? Just kind of all of that. And I think particularly
Yeah.
being Midwestern, it hits really hard, at least for me, because everyone around you is so nice. Usually I'm from a city of like 30,000 people. Everyone, even if they have different political views, you kind of have to be nice to each other because there's only
Yeah.
30,000 people. And obviously
Yeah.
when you're
Everyone knows
online and yeah, when you're online, it doesn't really apply to that. And you can have
Not at
people all over the
all.
world who are trying to take anything you say the worst possible way, you know?
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. It's nice to see better support in terms of like mental health for performers, and also just more awareness of like, hey, you know, we don't have to tear each other down for any reason. Like it's so unnecessary. And also just like more awareness of just the effect of being stigmatized the way the sex workers are, and how that even if nothing else applies, like that still affects your mental health in some very negative ways.
For sure. I also just feel like it's changed so much that it's not this whole studio model where it's every performer next to you is your competition, where you're
Yes,
all
that's so
trying to compete for
true.
4 or 5 gigs.
Yeah.
And I feel like even like at award shows, I don't feel like it's as tense as it used to be. I feel like for a
Yeah.
while it was very competitive and stuff. And I think now it's starting to shift a little bit, that it's like, oh, we can all actually collaborate with each other and continue making stuff. So I think
Yes.
that's the really big difference.
I'm glad that you mentioned the award shows again, because like I know that's kind of the theme of this week of episodes
Yeah.
of the show. And like I struggle with award shows. I always have. It's so frustrating for me because I am a deeply empathetic person, and I feel a lot of compersion. Is that like the right word? I know that's usually used about like polyamorous stuff. It's like, but I feel joy for other people's joy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have that, but then I also, on the flip side, am a highly ambitious person. And I am a competitive person. Like you don't ever want to play fucking, I'm trying to Scrabble. Like I get real competitive with Scrabble.
Yeah.
Like any of those types of things. So it's like kind of a stupid like thing. I don't take my competitiveness super seriously, but it does kind of creep in. And like
sure.
not in a way that I'm like outwardly competitive with other people, but like it's basically like I'm mean to myself.
Oh, same. It's
right. So
issue.
like, yes, when I was nominated for Best New Starlet and I didn't win it, like I did not expect to win it. I absolutely did not expect to, and I didn't. So my expectation was fulfilled, but I still could not let go. I was like, you could have won it if you were a better person, if you were more attractive, if you worked for the right companies more. Like I was like targeted all of that pressure directly at myself, you know. And I spent a lot of time in the first 3 years I was in the industry, like really tearing myself apart for not doing everything perfectly that I thought I should be.
Yeah, I felt a lot of the same. I just turned into a whole workaholic thing, because the whole Midwestern work ethic is, oh, if you lose, you just put more hard work in. And that's what I was doing for like the first 5 years until I was like literally burnt out and had to go to a therapist and be like, oh, you actually need to work through these things instead of just channeling all through work.
Yeah.
And then you can actually appreciate these things instead of being like, oh my God, why did I lose this? It can be like, oh, wow, you're literally part of porn history now because you've been nominated this many times, you know?
I spent a lot of time talking to my therapist about that as well. The concept of always having a new target, like it's always a moving target, essentially. Like I would set a goal and I would achieve that goal, but then I would never take the time to be happy about the thing I achieved. I would immediately move the target again. And then if I didn't achieve that one, it was just like, there was never time to ever just sit there and be like, look what I've done. Like,
never.
But it was just like, you never did enough. You're not doing enough is what I was constantly telling myself.
Yeah. It wasn't until the pandemic hit and I'm like, oh, wow, I did a lot of stuff, because you have to sit and you just have to be like, oh, there's nothing I can do right now, really.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was I spent so much time in my bedroom doing weird workouts that I like had to invent with like pieces of furniture and shit. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like, what am I doing here?
It's just such a different, yeah, when you realize that you have to get out of that mindset, it's really a good thing. But I also think like, I don't think either of us have ever won an AVN, right?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Mhm.
Um, so like, I think when you look at these events and stuff, how it's part of the larger porn history. And I think the thing that really makes it stick for me is when you're on the red carpet
Yeah.
and you're like getting on, and then there's like someone in front of you or behind you a few spots who've been in this industry for 10 years. And it's their first time ever getting nominated. And this is the
Yeah.
biggest point in their career. Like
Yeah.
that makes you realize you're like, oh, it's not about winning. It's about these people who might
Yes.
be working their entire career for this one moment that they're like, oh my God, I'm an actual like celebrity. I get to step on a red carpet. There's loads of
Yeah.
photographers everywhere. I get this one experience. And I think for me, that's like the thing to look back on and be like, wow, it's a surreal experience. And that's what's makes me the most sad about it not being in person. Not necessarily for the one girl who's going to win her first award or the girl who's
Yeah.
going to win her 50th award, like just those experiences for the first time people I feel like are so meaningful because it makes you realize, wow, this is a global industry. There's people from all over the world here. There's people that flew in. There's really takes over the whole city of Vegas for that whole week, you know?
Oh yeah, it does. It's such a fun time. Yeah, it's I miss that it's not happening in person. And at this
Yeah.
point, I feel like we're all wondering, is it ever going to happen again in person? Like everything
Yeah.
feels up in the air when it comes to all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, even like now, if they came out tomorrow and they're like, we can't have the award show because of COVID, like it would be completely believable. It's just right now, everything
Yeah.
feels completely able to be canceled no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Like the Super Bowl could be canceled, AVN could be canceled, like
Oh,
anything possible could just be canceled right now. So yeah, I think that's like my biggest takeaway, that everyone should just be like, wow, I've gotten to be part of this thing that's documented nearly 40 years of porn, which is crazy.
wild. It's wild. And it's, another thing about AVNs is that like everyone knows what it is. I went and got my hair done yesterday. I got like a trim and I got my pink refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the hair salon I go to is like a bunch, like one of the guys who works there is like a professional drag queen. And so it's like all these like he had like a lot of friends in there. So it was just like the vibe was so great. But my stylist was asking me to see my photos of like the dress I wore to the Expos Awards and stuff. And I showed it to her, and like immediately, it's funny that it was like the Expos Awards, but immediately everyone was like, "Oh, is that the AVNs?" Like, because that's what people know, because it's been televised on Showbiz for so many years and stuff.
Yeah, for so long.
And it's just, yeah, it's funny that like even a kind of a civilian who I would guess, if I had to guess, doesn't really know a lot about our industry or even the name of our award show, but they all knew immediately, and we're like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Like. And I was like, no, that was a different award show, but no one knows about that one because that one's the one that is like closed to the public. And I was like, but I am nominated for an AVN.
I know, it definitely hits so big because people really do know. And yeah, I just think that part of the reason I wanted to do all these this week is just to actually show how big of a deal it really is and how this is such a thing with such a long tradition. Like there's been more AVN awards than there have been Summer Olympics, which is fucking crazy when you think about it that way.
Yeah, that
and
is
like,
funny. It's a funny way to
and
think
like just kind of thinking about it in that format where it's not just like, oh yeah, it's just porn, it's whatever. Like I just think porn really, particularly in North America, just deserves more respect to its name, because I feel like in Europe, like with all the porn film festivals and stuff, porn is really way more respected there.
Yeah, I mean, they have such a more generally Europeans have less puritanical attitudes towards sex. So that's definitely got to be like a part of it. But it's like, it's funny to consider that on one hand, but then on the other hand, also consider that like Los Angeles, which is in the United States, has really been the hub of porn production since the like 70s. So it's kind of, That's a whole other conversation, though, is like talking about the anti-porn movement in the US right now.
Yeah, it's I mean, also just everything in the United States right now is just kind of trash, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
so
very true.
well, thank you so much for talking to me. I have one more question for you. So you made one of the best claims on Twitter about AVN this week, that if you don't win best ass, there isn't a god, which is, I think, an amazing claim. I think more people need to make giant claims like that.
So I guess some people agree.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so that's the fan voted award, which is like where on the AVN Stars website, fans, this is like going back like over a month ago, they were doing pre-nominations, which is where I could tell my fans like, hey, if you think I should get nominated for this award, please submit me for pre-nominations. And I got enough fans to submit me for pre-nominations that now I'm in the actual voting round. And I think there's like 25 people in the category. And so basically they're collecting votes until like tomorrow. I think
it ends tonight.
Oh, it says the website says noon on the 22nd, and I'm assuming the specific time. So it's like one more day basically. And yeah, and the way it's worked in past years is that out of those nomination people, the top 5 the most votes go into the actual and their names get announced at the AVN Awards. And that's how they reveal the ultimate winner of that category. So I've just been going nuts on my fans. Like, I have a bot timer in my Discord server that reminds them every 12 hours to vote for me.
So let's say, I mean, I think most religions should be tuning into AVN to find out if God is real tomorrow. I think because it's in like the rolling credits at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the rolling credits of AVN this year are going to decide whether there's a God or not. But let's say are you in Pacific time right now? Are you in California?
I'm in Eastern.
Okay, you're in Kentucky right now.
Kentucky, yeah.
So let's say, well, are you going to be up until like 3 a.m. for the award show?
Oh yeah, I'm normally up till 3. I basically, even though I live in Kentucky and it's Eastern time zone, I because of going out to LA a lot, I kind of just operate on Pacific time.
Yeah, I totally did that when I still lived in Michigan, where I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna live by California time. So that's okay. Let's say it's 3 a.m. and you won. What's your celebration plan? We find out there's a God.
Oh my God.
And you win.
Well, I suppose because I've put myself in this position, the first thing I'm going to have to do is pray or something.
Yeah. Can you give us some sort of Mormon or Catholic thing after? If you win, I feel like you need to at least do something for this podcast as a nun or a Mormon or something of the sort.
Maybe I'll say a prayer to thank Satan because I am a member of the Satanic Temple.
Oh, nice. I mean, I guess, yeah. So there's some belief in God there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't checked out Satanism since probably I was in a black metal band when I was 19, but
oh my God.
Yeah, that's my art route is playing in black metal bands.
That's beautiful. I love that so much.
So yeah, what's the celebration plan other than praising Satan?
To be honest, I will probably bang my boyfriend immediately.
Okay.
I'm saying if I win an award that literally says I have the most epic ass, I mean, I will immediately, my partner will be sitting next to me watching the award results and I will immediately be like, do you want to bang the most epic ass, babe? That'll be my celebration, which is super fitting.
That's a really good one.
Person, why not celebrate with one of the most wonderful things that you can do with
doing anal? That's terrific.
Yeah, exactly.
I also feel like most epic ass should be a thing where it should be like a wrestling belt where if someone throughout the year challenges you and has a bigger ass and knocks you over, they get it.
Oh my God.
I think that's how it should go. You could start that tradition though. You could be anyone at any time can challenge me.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think you should start that tradition. Really have it be a wrestling or sort of UFC
or American situation. Ninja, we're on a pedestal that's only wide enough for barely 2 people, and there's a pool of water at the bottom, and you just got booty bump the other person off.
We need to do a live pod version of that. Terrific. We can bring in challengers. Well, I wish you the best luck this
you.
I guess this weekend, I guess it's tomorrow now. Where can everyone find you on all the apps?
You can find me on my main site, which is siridahl.com. And that site has links to everything else, including my like fan sites, ManyVids, anywhere you can buy my content. And on socials, on Twitter, I'm the Siri Dahl. I'm also the Siri Dahl on Instagram. Although that is my like backup account, but my original Instagram is super shadow banned. You can follow it if you want to. It's therealsiri.ps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Siri. It was so great to chat with you. Good luck to everyone this weekend.
Thank you. Yes, good luck to everyone. Bye.
Thank you.